Rosettes. One of the cardinal sins of guitar making is to throw anything away. So on the one hand we end up with a lot of junk, and on the other hand some really interesting effects can be had. I have some material. This is just representative pieces, but I have full sets of a lot of these things. These are things that my teacher, Rolf Eichinger, prepared over the course of his life, and I, rather than put them in glass cases somewhere, I thought I would put them in guitars. Hopefully the guitars will be played, and maybe some of them will end up in glass cases too. The first thing you might notice about these rosettes, these mosaics, is that they're smaller than what you typically see. Now he did that because he liked to install them in the way that we install veneer lines. Here's an example. You can see here that this mosaic here holds together because the individual pieces are glued to a veneer, a line of veneer. So he could set this whole rosette in at once. Now that really saves a lot of time. But you can't do it with a tall. I'll use this tall and short for this dimension here. You can't do that with a tall mosaic. The one I use, for example, is not a lot bigger, but it is taller, and I have to use individual tiles, forcing them one at a time in between the lines of rosettes. Now I'll move the mosaics out of the way, and we can start having a look at some of his other designs. For example, here's a good one. Now this one is similar to something we've seen in a lot of guitars over the years. It's this one here, which looks like a twisted rope. Right? You may not see it quite so clearly here. Now this effect is achieved by using, even though it's side grain, we're getting a different effect with one piece and the other piece. I think originally he tried to do it with side grain and end grain, but he got a more repeatable result, a more consistent result, by using two different species of wood. I think it's sycamore for the whiter wood and oak for the darker wood. Not sure about that. Now the advantage to using side grain is that you get really bright whites, because when you're using a end grain, it can get dirty. It's not very bright to begin with. It's not very smooth. Doesn't take a polish as well. So these bright, crisp designs work well with side grain. I'll just show you a few more. Not sure how well you can see that one. And one more here. Now, these are very interesting. It seems that Miguel Rodriguez used a more traditional marquetry in that he would use veneer cut to shapes to make a mosaic. So that means side grain, of course. Now, these were made up into logs and then cut off, you know, the way we make rosette mosaics, end grain. to be more efficient. Because being efficient is another very important thing about making guitars. If you're not efficient, you can't make money at this. So, make a living. Nobody makes money at this. Make a living. These look very hard to make. I've never made one, but I know a few things that make them easier than they look. All of you have mitered purfling before, so if you have on the end graft, you have to, 2 lines of purfling have to meet at right angles. It's very easy to cut that with a chisel. You can get a perfect 45-degree angle by using the chisel as a mirror. That system works with these angles as well. These are 30-degree, 60-degree angles, and you get the same effect. Your eye can see very clearly where to cut to get that angle. So, that's easy. And then, now that would be for making one at a time, the way we can imagine that the old guys did. Now, the way this was done was to make up a log, sort of like this, and then slice them off. Now, imagine getting all those pieces to go to their proper place as you're gluing them up. This was glued with string wrapped around it, thread wrapped around it to force them together. Well, because these are little wedges, 6 wedges basically that come together to form a hexagon, they'll all go to their place with the right pressure. Any pressure forces them together and the points come together. So there's no worries about getting the gluing right, as long as the cutting is right. So not quite as hard maybe as it looks to do these things. I don't have a lot of pieces of these, so when I do make a rosette with this one, it might look like that, alternating designs, because I don't have enough to do a rosette made out of one design only. Just wanted to go back to this for a minute, because those of you who know me know that I like to get myself into trouble on this blog. So just wanted to complain a little about people who try and teach us how to make rosettes, and will do things like use the router to make a central channel, install the little diamonds, make another router channel outside of that, install these pieces one at a time, you know, tile at a time, maybe that sort of a length of piece. And look at this on the other hand, how quickly it was all done. Set it all in at the same time. We work in efficient ways, we have to. So I just get upset when I see people trying to teach us how to make guitars and they've never learned themselves. One of the reasons why I'm hesitant to teach. Don't want to be criticized the way I'm criticizing everyone else. One last rosette here, or design. Not one I particularly like, actually. I used to give him a hard time about this for being flashy, because he was not a flashy guy. This, again, working the way he generally did with this strip of material that he prepared. So this, you have to imagine it closing up around the sound hole, and these white spikes coming out of the away from the hole. That was his sunburst design. So watch for those rosettes on upcoming guitars.